Hmm.
Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we help simplify the college planning process for our families. I'm Kristin Clark. I'm a career exploration coach for 16 to 25-year-olds. So I help your teens and your college students figure out what they want to do as far as a career path. And I'm here with Bobby Hood, who helps all kinds of students figure out how to do better on their SAT and ACTs. Bobby, how are you doing today?
Just great. Having fun, getting ready to talk more about the digital SAT because as of last Saturday, the paper SAT is now gone. There is
Defunct.
no paper SAT anymore. And so we have the digital SAT and the ACT. And as I've talked about before, I mean, I hated that paper SAT, and I've always steered students to the ACT for the past 10 years. But this new digital SAT might be a good alternative for a lot of students. And a couple of weeks ago, you and I talked about how it has this calculator built into it that you can use to solve like 50 or 65% of the questions, which is crazy, right? And so we looked at how weird that was a few weeks ago. But still, all that other stuff still applies, all the strategies for all the other questions, same ones that you use on the ACT.
Yeah.
But so I thought today we'd just go through some of that. You want to look at some questions?
Absolutely. And, while you're pulling those up, Bobby,
Yeah.
for anybody that's listening, go back and look at the YouTube channel, College Planning Untangled. We have all those past videos up for you to review. So if your kiddo's getting ready to take the ACT or the SAT, these have great tips in them to help them just do better.
Absolutely. And so this is our series that we've been doing called Hard Things Are Not That Hard. And it's really fun, I think, to show these to you because I know you haven't done math in forever. And so these things just look like insanity to you. And it's interesting to talk about how, like, you could actually do some of these even though you haven't done math in so many years, right?
That, Bobby, and, I was thinking about this when we were doing the pre-show and kind of looking at these examples, but everybody's like, oh, I don't do this in real life. There is some logic that you have to put towards this and, critical thinking type things.
Yeah.
So I think, when your kid too is coming to you and they're like, I shouldn't have to do algebra. Well, you know what? The logic piece of it, I think, is helpful. So
absolutely. And that's part of the thing is like the new digital SATs, like, so here's a question. This is very similar to something that we would have seen on the ACT in the past, things like that, right? It's intimidating algebra. And of course, this thing we talked about, you could type this into that Desmos online calculator and type the answers in and see which ones show the same thing. You could use the Desmos calculator to solve this. But still, though, the strategy also can be every algebra question, you can just solve it by throwing numbers in. You just
all right, I got to tell you, right off the bat, I think it's B.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So let's see what happens, right? See, this is what happens. The students look at things and they just say, oh, I think it might be this, right? But okay, so I look at it and I say, I'm just going to plug in a number and change this into an arithmetic question. And so I'm going to use the number 2 because 2 is a nice, easy number. And so then if I had to do it by hand instead of using the calculator, I would put the number 2 in there for X. And so you would get that, right? You just replace the 4X with 4 times 2. And you simplify that and you get this, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
And then you simplify again and that answer comes out to 1. So if I...
But Bobby, why do you have to go through that? Like, why should...
As opposed to using the Desmos calculator, you mean?
No. So, going back a million years when I was learning this stuff, that whole idea of you simplify it by doing the math across is all I did when I said, I think it's B. So
and see, that's the thing is that's going to lead you to a trap answer. Because there's a more complicated thing that you have to do to solve this. And nobody remembers it because it was from Algebra 1. Even if they're in Algebra 2 now, they probably aren't doing this. And so if the value of X is 2, the answer to this question would be 1. So now I'm going to put in the number 2 for choice A. And that would be 9 divided by, 2 plus 1 is 3. 4 times 2 is 8 minus 5, that's 3. That's 9 divided by 9, that's 1. That answer matches.
Yeah,
but if you put in...
is half. Or 3
But if you put in the value of 2 into B, you get 3 divided by 6 minus 6. That's an error. Yeah. And then the third one, Well, that comes out to 1/9, and then the fourth one comes out to -1/9.
Got
So
it.
apparently the answer to this is A, right? And you can get it without remembering whatever weird algebra thing you're supposed to do. Or you can use that Desmos calculator. Now, okay, the second big strategy is word problems. What most people do is they read a word problem and they start thinking about what to do. And if you start reading this word problem, the density of wood is 353 kilograms per meter. Sample of the wood is, okay, it just hurts my head to even try to think about it. Right?
Well, yeah, because my first question on this one was, well, they're talking about kilograms, but they want me to tell them how long it is.
Right.
Just one of the edges. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so the strategy for word problems is, instead of sitting there thinking about what to do, just write down what they ask for. So they are asking for a length of an edge, right? So write that down. And then start at the beginning and just write down, work phrase by phrase, and write down the things they told you. So the first thing they said is the number 353 kilograms per meter cubed. So I'm just going to write that down.
Right.
And the second number they said is 345 kilograms. And if I just write those numbers down, I'm like, well, those are the only two numbers in the problem. I guess I'm supposed to do something with them. If I multiply those numbers together, if I wrote the units down like that, you can't multiply those together, because then the answer would be kilograms squared or something, right?
Right. Yeah, you got to divide them, right?
Yeah, I need to be in meters. So, okay, it must be dividing. So I say, okay, I'm going to divide these two numbers, right? And so I say, okay, I'm going to divide them. And then, well, when you divide, you multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so now it looks like this. And when you multiply those, okay, yeah, those kilograms are going to cancel out, and I'm going to get an answer that is in meters. And so the answer that I get is 0.97 meters cubed.
All right. So
just by dividing those two numbers or whatever, right?
Got it. Why did you put the 345 divided by the 353 and not vice versa?
Because then the answer would have been in kilograms squared or whatever, right? It's just whatever way gets me to a number that's in meters. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's like, but so, I mean, that's just like, I don't know, but, oh, if I did this, at least the answer is in meters cubed. Oh, but the answer is supposed to be in meters. Okay, I guess we're cubing that number. I don't know. So the question is, I guess, which of those answers, if I cubed it, would give me 0.97? And apparently 0.99 does. And so the answer is B. But the point is, this question is so hard and confusing, but I didn't think about how nobody knows it from high school how to get from mass divided by density would give you something like that, right? But just by putting the numbers in, you're like, okay, I guess this would get me the answer to this incredibly hard question.
Well, right? It is. And I think too, Bobby, it's that you've got the steps. So if you screw up step one, step two is obviously going to be screwed up. And that's why this makes this one hard.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so this is just a very strange question, but it's more just the approach of just write it down the numbers and look at them instead of sitting there and thinking about things.
And here's the other thing. If you're totally confused, skip that one and come back to it later.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I mean, you're the expert, but that's what I do.
No, absolutely. Right. And that is one nice thing, is that at least you can skip questions on the SAT and come back to it later. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Look at this question. Now, what is this question asking us at the end? And this is geometry, where with geometry, you just draw and label and then write down the formula they're asking about. So what is this question asking for at the end? It says, what is the meaning of the slope of this graph? Right?
Yeah, can you scroll it up a little bit so we can see that?
So now here's the whole question so we can see it. Okay. They want to know what the slope means. And so part of this is just little tricks that you use on geometry questions. If you want to figure out the slope of a line on a graph, what you can do is draw a right triangle on the graph like this.
Okay.
And then I just picked any 2 points that I could see pretty easily. And then you say, okay, the bottom of that triangle goes over from 2 to 6. It's 4. The right side of that triangle went from 150 to 250. So that's 100. Okay. Slope there's a formula for it, but it's just rise over run.
Yep. That makes sense.
Right. So you don't need to remember a formula. You don't need to remember y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And okay, if the slope of this graph then is $100 divided by 4 games, so the slope of this graph of this line is $25 per game. So you see, again, I'm writing down kind of the units of what they're talking about.
And by the way, for any of our teens out there, you will use this in corporate America if you take a business job.
Oh, absolutely. And so now
I used to do this stuff in marketing all the time. So
now you can look at the answers and see, oh, okay, well, I guess the answer is A. But you see how if you sat and thought about this, it would be really easy to overthink your way and get confused or right?
Well, Bobby, that's why I love having you take us through this, because you simplify it and dumb it down and take, like, I think, we make things too complex, and it's, you're
absolutely.
dumbing it down.
And one of the other things is, like, these are the sample questions that are on College Board's website for the test. Like, there will be a question on every test that's very similar to this, right? Yeah. So each of these things, once you figure out how to do it, it's not like they're going to ask some other thing. They'll ask this, they'll ask another thing too, right? But these are all the kinds of things that they have on the test. Now, here's another one. If you look at this question, okay, we'll take a look at it first. Circle
first, I know you're going to say draw it.
Yeah. So the strategy for geometry is draw it, label it, and then write whatever formulas you need. So yeah, it starts talking about a circle. So I'm going to draw a circle. And it starts talking about arcs. And arcs and sectors always sound really hard and confusing. Right. Students always get really intimidated about that. But it says, okay, 45-degree arc. Okay. So I'm not going to worry about the fact that sounds hard. I'm just going to draw it. Okay. So there's a circle with 45-degree angle.
Yep.
And then I'm just going to label it, right? Draw and then label. They said that arc is 3 inches long.
So I multiply that times 4, times 1, 2.
So then you kind of chop the thing up. Yeah, you chop it up into 4 pieces. Okay, it looks like that's 1/8 of it, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess the answer is 24, right? Like, but only because I looked at it. There's a formula for this, but I don't need it. I just draw it and look at it. Right?
Yeah.
That's it, right? Don't overthink.
You needed the formula, Bobby. What's the formula? It's not pi, is it?
No, but it is like the arc divided by the circumference is the same as the angle divided by 360 degrees. And so 3 inches divided by the circumference is equal to 45 degrees over 360 degrees. This is what College Board wants you to solve, is that equation right there. And that will you cross multiply and divide, and the answer is 24, right? But what I'm saying is draw it, look at it, right?
Where'd you find 24 in that? Oh, because you didn't do the math on it.
So then you do the math. Yeah, it'd be, so this is 1/8, right? And so then it's, circumference equals 3 times 8.
So what you're telling us, though, is you can just be logical and do
right. And it's like, don't let it intimidate you. Oh, I don't remember that thing about arcs or whatever. Okay, and then the very last thing is just all these arithmetic problems, right? Averages, ratios, percentages, probabilities. There's just a bunch of different questions like that. But like, take a look at this question here. F of 0 equals 86. Each increase of x by 1, the value of f of x decreases by 80%. Okay, well, so if f of 0 is 86, then when you increase x by 1, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do the math on that. Right. So first I'm going to write down when x is 0, y is 86.
Okay.
Then I'm going to say, okay, well, they said go down 80%. Okay. Go down 80% is multiply by 20%.
Yep.
And so, okay, so when x is 1, y is, I guess, 17.2. Right.
So then you do the 17.2 times 0.20 again, right? Okay.
And that's it. Yeah. And that's all. Right. But the point is, do it step by step, write it down. And know simple things like, that to decrease by 80%, you multiply by 20%. That's all, right? Yeah. But here's a more, and this is the last question we'll look at. Okay. In a group, 40% of the items are red. Of the red stuff, 30% have stripes. What percentage of the groups are red and have stripes? Now, that hurts my head to.
No. So it's, if you do 100. Minus.
So wait a second. You said do 100, right?
Well, to me, you're going for the 40%, right? So
exactly. And so this is the
40
thing.
Red items.
So numbers are missing from this problem. So back to the very beginning, we can plug in our own number. And as you just said, of course, plug in that the group has 100 items in it. Now work phrase by phrase, just like any word problem. 40% of the items are red. Yeah. So, okay. So there's 40 red items, as you were just saying, right? And then, okay, so the next thing is of the red items. And so you have to do this step by step because it's easy to miss that step, right?
Yep.
So we're taking 30% of that 40.
Yep.
Right?
So it's got to
Okay,
be.
so that means we have 12 striped red things.
Yeah.
Okay, and then now they asked for percentage, and this is another little trick. The answer is 12. Yeah, right, 12%, because we started with 100.
Yes.
But technically, this is another just trick. When they ask, what is the percentage? What is a percentage? Percentage is part over whole, and a little trick is divided by of. So when it says is or are, right, that's the thing that goes on the top, and then of is the part that goes on the bottom. So you can work through it that way. And that's it, right? So these are just all little tricks on questions that they're always going to ask, but a lot of it is just being methodical and working step by step.
You know what? And Bobby, that's what you're always sharing on this. And it's like, just read it, break it down, write it down. I think that's the big key that I always have taken from you is don't just do it in your head, write it down.
You've got to write it down and then look at what you're writing. And this is one of the things, like why like this problem was so simple and obvious to you when it's actually tricky and hard for a lot of students is because if you're a good reader and a careful reader and you read things phrase by phrase, then you totally get it, right?
So can they take paper into the digital and they can do it on them? Okay.
Yes,
so
you are allowed to have scratch paper.
Okay.
Which is very, very helpful. So yes, like I wouldn't write all the words that are on the screen here, but I would write like 100, then I would write 40% red, and then I would write 40, and then I would write 30%, 30% of 40, right? Or things like that. Right.
Yep.
And that's it. And so that is all, like, these are the same strategies that you would use on the ACT as well. But you can see when you combine together what we talked about last time that you can do a whole lot of this stuff with this built-in online calculator. And then you just kind of be methodical, read carefully, write everything down, and don't let things intimidate you. You can do very well on all the rest of it. That's it.
Awesome. All right.
All right. This is wonderful. I will look forward to next week. I hope you have a great week. And thanks everyone for